Hi guys. On the last video, Snowtown Murders, Bodies in the Barrels, we were about 40 minutes south of my hometown of Port Pirie. This time we travel almost 60 minutes northeast to Yatina and the connection the tiny town has with the Adelaide Oval abductions. In 1973, Joanne Ratcliffe, 11, and Kirste, 4, were two Australian girls who went missing while attending an Australian rules football match at the Adelaide Oval. Ratcliffe and Gordon's disappearance and presumed abduction and murder became one of South Australia's best-known crimes. The presumed murders are sometimes thought to be related to the Beaumont children disappearance in 1966. The families both had season tickets to the football games and sat next to each other in the same seats every week. They knew each other well. When Joanne went to the toilet, Kirste, Gordon's grandmother, asked her to take Kirste. They returned after a few minutes. A little over half an hour later, Kirste again wanted to go to the toilet, and again Joanne took her, but this time they did not return. Upon realising this, it was decided that each member of the family would search an area of the football stadium for them, with Kirste's grandmother remaining at the seats in case the girls returned. The assistant curator of the Oval reported seeing the girls leaving the Oval with a man. Over the next 90 minutes, 4 different sightings of the man and the 2 girls were made. In 3 of these sightings, Joanne appeared distressed. Kirste, Gordon and Joanne Ratcliffe were seen with a man about 3 kilometres from the Oval 90 minutes after they had left it. This was the last sighting. Neither they nor the man were ever seen nor heard from again. While I understand that forensics in the 60s and 70s weren't what they are now, this case has me angry over what was either slipshod police work or, more concerningly, truth behind the rumours of the cover-up of a pedophile ring with members in high government positions operating in Adelaide, and I'll explain why. An identikit photo of the man was made by witness descriptions and circulated, but no one came forward and the case grew cold. In 1998, a joint inquiry was started to look into any possible connections between the abductions of Jane, Anna and Grant Beaumont in 1966 and the disappearance of Joanne Ratcliffe and Kirste Gordon. Now, bear in mind that Kirste and Joanne went missing in 1973, and it wasn't until 1998 that they looked at a possible connection. This was the identikit portrait from witnesses of the Beaumont children's disappearance. Another possible witness, Robert McMahon, 73, was living in a boarding house in the Adelaide suburb of Prospect. Remember that suburb. Mr. McMahon claims that late on the afternoon of August 25th, 1973, he was sitting in his room watching a VFA football match on TV when he heard a racket out the back of the house. I went to check and there was one of the boarders coming in and he had 2 children with him, he said. He had the little one under his right arm and the other one was ahead of him. He walked them around in a circle in front of us, 4 or 5 men, laughing and joking. He said the kids were his grandchildren, but when the older one went to speak, he told her to shut up and not say anything. I can still see the taller girl now as she walked past me. It was all very weird, he said. Mr. McMahon, who was 33 at the time of the girl's disappearance, went to the kitchen area of the boarding house, where he said he watched the man drag the small girl to the back of his van that was parked in the laneway. He threw the little one in roughly and motioned to the bigger one to jump in. He slammed the back door and then locked it. "That's not the way you treat your grandchildren," he said. Mr. McMahon said he was so concerned that he returned to his room and did sketches of the girls and the van. He said he rang the police the next day when news broke of the possible abductions. When I saw the photos, I knew for sure it was the girls that I'd seen, he said. But the police said they had hundreds of sightings and would get back to me. He claims they never did. He said he rang police a week later and then again around the first anniversary of the abductions with the same result. He said he didn't pursue it further out of frustration. Arthur Stanley Brown, who abducted, raped and killed sisters 5-year-old Susan and 7-year-old Judith Mackay in Townsville, Queensland in 1970, should have been a possible suspect. Witnesses in the Mackay case reported seeing a man in a car with the girls. The car had one odd-coloured door. But only a few of the witnesses described the car as a Vauxhall, while most of the witnesses said it was a Holden. Police discarded the Vauxhall and focused their attention on looking for the Holden. Arthur Brown slipped through the cracks. He drove a Vauxhall with one different coloured door. It's been reported that while drinking at a bar, Brown spoke to a man who was visiting Queensland from South Australia, mentioning that he'd been to Adelaide and seen the newly opened festival centre. The festival centre opened in June 1973. It wasn't until 1998 when a woman broke a 30-year silence to tell police he had molested 5 children related to his first wife, often at the same spot where the Mackay sisters' bodies were found in 1970, that the case blew open. But a Queensland jury could not reach a verdict in 1999, and a new trial was blocked in 2000 on the ground that he was too senile to be tried again. Arthur Brown took his secrets to the grave in 2002. Another 5 years pass, and in January 2007, convicted paedophile Mark Trevor Marshall writes a confession naming his grandfather, Stanley Arthur Hart, as a suspect in the abduction and murder of Joanne Ratcliffe and Kirste Gordon. He names Pekina Dam near Orroroo and the Yatina farmhouse of Hart as sites of interest in the murder of the girls, and provides various hand-drawn maps in the confession. In March 2007, Marshall speaks before Commissioner Edward Mulligan QC as part of the Children in State Care Commission of Inquiry. Later that year, Marshall's handwritten confession and maps are removed from the state archives and copies are distributed to a number of parties, including the Advertiser newspaper. A year later, in December 2008, major crime detectives, led by private investigators who were given the documents, searched the Yatina farmhouse and Pekina Dam and remove a number of items. A month later, in January 2009, the private detectives returned to Pekina Dam and recovered 2 barrels hidden in a sealed tunnel of the dam wall where Marshall suggested the bodies of the girls were disposed of. Tests conducted by SA Police on the contents revealed a weak trace of blood and an acidic substance, but police later determined them to be of no significance. Nothing of significance. Take a look at the photo. That's a child's shoe. Here is short video footage of the private investigators who found the barrels. Private investigators, not police. The barrels were hidden in a tunnel in the dam. Who hides barrels in a tunnel in a dam?
Someone would have to go to a great effort to put that up there, because there's no current.
tank that is blocking the entrance to the tunnel. The entrance to the tunnel. There are blowflies en masse. Torchlight won't even penetrate the dark.
Stanley Arthur Hart was a known pedophile, but police say there was no evidence to link him to the case. It's been reported that Hart was a die-hard North Adelaide Football Club fan and rarely missed a match. It's also been discovered that he was still the owner of his childhood home in the Adelaide suburb of, you guessed it, Prospect. The house had a cellar, but it was filled in. The current owners, who have lived there for 40 years, say they've never been contacted by police, but would be willing to cooperate. Nothing has been done so far. Hart passed away in Queensland in 1999, but was buried at the Yattina property, and I fear that the truth... In August 2012, Joanne Ratcliffe's sister, Susie, started a memorial page on Facebook and passed information on to police following a phone call she received in response. The Advertiser newspaper reported that fact, and the police responded by saying that there was no new clues in the cold case. If it wasn't such a sad case, I would have to chuckle at the fact that the South Australian Police have offered a $1 million reward for information leading to the killer. I'll finish this video with a short clip of Joanne's sister Susie speaking to the news, and then a short remembrance of the two little girls who disappeared that day. Thank you for watching.
A young girl abducted from Adelaide Oval 4 decades ago has welcomed a fresh investigation into the case. Susie Wilkinson believes the search of a remote area in the state's mid-north could uncover the remains of her sister, Joanne Ratcliffe.
She's been waiting for a breakthrough for 4 decades, and this hunt for clues is about as close as Susie Wilkinson has come.
Oh, I think it's fantastic. It always gives us hope, but it also strengthens our hope that our girls haven't been forgotten.
Susie's sister, Joanne Ratcliffe, was 11 when she and Kirste Gordon disappeared from Adelaide Oval in 1973. This remote property at Yattina has been linked to the case for many years, with its previous owner, Stanley Hart, interviewed by detectives several times before his death in 1999.
I don't want to pinpoint one particular person, but for all of the investigations that have been involved, he does look like a very strong suspect.
Hart's grandson, convicted pedophile Mark Marshall, has detailed evidence against his grandfather from inside prison. That material used by private investigators to uncover what they believe is crucial evidence.
Straight away the hair stood up on the back of my neck, and that was confirmation that his story has some substance.
Police have excavated 2 wells at Hart's former property, but safety concerns have forced them to postpone the search.
If there is one little possibility that our girls are at the bottom of that well, then I would like them to foresee it all the way through.
41 years on, family of the girls have not given up hope. They believe there are still people out there that know what happened here that day, and they're pleading with them to come forward.
I want to be able to lay my dad's tortured soul to rest, and I want to be able to look my mum in the face and say, "Mum, we're bringing Sissy home."